Yes.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of IDA Bangalore chapter, I welcome all the participants and IDA members for another scientific session on advanced glycation end products in foods and the health concerns. India is a country with diverse food culture. Eating habits change based on region, religion, and cultural practices. We have observed that evolution has influenced eating habits, cooking mediums, food preferences, and also the utensils that are used for cooking to a greater extent. The concept of food processing has come into existence with evolution. From hunting and consuming food by ordering online, from using firewood to cook to just switch on the microwave oven. A lot of research is done to prove that improvement in socioeconomic status and availability of processed food has led to a lot of lifestyle changes and has reduced consumption of food in their natural form. This drastic change in the food culture has been raising concerns to our health status. Research also has focused on influence of westernization on food habits, and high calorie consumption of food has increased the incidence of childhood obesity, PCOD, cardiac issues, and diabetes at a very young age, and so on. However, today we are having a session which will give us an insight about a new concept that the end products formed due to combining ingredients and the different mediums employed in cooking and its impact on our health despite adhering to traditional cooking methods. Today, we have Dr. Priyanka Rohatgi with us, who will give us an eye opener to this concept. I welcome Dr. Priyanka.
Thank you, Sandhya.
And we have Sangeeta Narayan Swami with us, who will be moderating the session. And I welcome you, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Sandhya.
Yeah, to give an introduction about the moderator, I'm going to share the screen. Sangeeta Narayan Swami is a nutritionist by profession. She has 18 years of experience in the field of clinical nutrition and dietetics. She is the former chief dietitian and FNB HOD at Yashomati Hospital. She is the founder partner of the company Healthy Binge. She is the partner and nutritionist at Nutrifills, and she has a versatile experience in helping patients with diabetes, cardiac health, and nephrology diseases. She is into counseling on lifestyle related issues like obesity, working with hospitals, post operative and trauma patients, polyclinic, and corporate clients. She is into IDA, and she is currently the National Executive Committee member of Indian Dietetic Association. She is the chairperson for the IDA Database Streaming Committee. Was the joint secretary of Indian Dietetic Association Bangalore chapter between 2015 and 2018, and She is giving back to the society by creating, a clinic, and also, conducting television programs, school nutrition education programs. She's a qualified dietitian, and she's also done postgraduate diploma in preventive and promotive healthcare from Apollo Hospitals, Educational and Research Foundation, Lifetime Wellness RX International, Hyderabad. Over to you, Sangeeta, to take over the session.
Thank you, Sandhya. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to this much awaited session on advanced glycation end products and its impact on non-communicable diseases. It is always a pleasure to introduce a very dear friend. As you all know, Dr. Priyanka Rohatgi is the Chief Clinical Dietitian and Head, Apollo Hospitals, Bangalore. She has been the President of IDA Bangalore chapter from 2011 to 2014. She was the elected NEC member of IDA from 2015 to 2018. She has 18 plus years of experience in clinical dietetics and research. She is the faculty for online program Nutrition Quotient and IDA initiated programs on weight management. She is also on the advisory board to various MNCs. She has 8 gold medals to her credit. She's been awarded with International Award from United Kingdom Emerald Group for the best scientific work in the year 2007. She has a green belt in Six Sigma certification. She's a qualified trainer for 5S. She's on the editorial board of few scientific publications. She has contributed to many articles, both in press and print. She has about 46 research publications to her credit, both national and international, scientific journals related to nutrition. I think we are all going to listen to a very hot topic on a cold and windy afternoon. Without wasting much time, over to you, Priyanka.
Thank you so much. And I'm really grateful to IDA Bangalore chapter for giving me this platform. This has been a topic of great interest and has been picking up a lot of momentum of late, because this is the area of concern, and sometimes without realizing we do not consider a few things which make a major impact. So I'm sharing the slides. Please let me know if you're able to see. Are you able to view the slides?
Not yet.
Not yet, Priyanka.
Okay, just give me. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Priyanka. Yeah.
Great. So we have been hearing about the word age, and that is advanced glycation end products. And coincidentally, the acronym AGE also is directly related to age. So here, age would refer to not just glycation end product formation, but also aging of the cells, because these end products have a deadly consequence of life. So let me take you through a small brief of how we're going to handle the whole presentation. You'll have to bear with me for the next 60 minutes because this is a vast concept, and we are going to divide it into 3 major components to understand what is advanced glycation end products, what are the effects of those products that are formed in our body, and how do they complicate the various metabolic pathways. Then we come on to what are the sources of AGE in our diet, how are they formed in the body, and as dietitians, we definitely want to know what would be our dietary mechanism, our counseling tips to the patients against AGE, and what could be the possible preventive methods. So the next 10 slides are going to be a little technical, and if you miss out on few diagrams or biochemical pathways, you really don't have to worry, because this is just to give an understanding to the students on how these metabolic pathways work. As clinical dietitians, I'm going to give a quick recap towards the end on take-home messages, as desired by our president, Dr. Sandhya, and she was very particular that the slides had to be really crisp with good take-home messages. So now we all understand that this is our gut. Not everybody has such a huge gut, but our gut has a lot of micronutrients present, and we really don't know which micronutrient is getting absorbed at what cycles, what are the inhibitors, and what really is happening into the body. We just ingest food. The simplest example of oxidation that we can see is an apple. Now, when as dietitians we want to carry fruit as a mid morning break, we just slice the apple and carry it for ourselves. By the time we try eating it at 11 o'clock break, we realize that it has already oxidized slightly. So, what you are eating is not the real healthy apple which you got from your fridge out this morning, but this was an oxidized apple. And you could simply prevent that oxidation by just smearing a little quantity of lemon onto the apple. Isn't it simple? And this would not only give you slight vitamin C, but also prevent the formation of oxidation. So, such simple things we are going to discuss. But before that, let's understand what are AGEs. So, AGEs are basically oxidative bodies which are formed inside the body and outside the body. Now, if you are adding an antioxidant, just as we did in the case of the apple, so what we did was the antioxidant could bind with the unpaired electron which was present in the free radical, and it could negate the effect of the free radical. So that would be the power of we dietitians advising our patients on right combinations. So what do we understand by AGEs? These are basically, this may be a little complicated for you to understand, but don't worry. By the end of the presentation, we'll all understand. We need not have a complete memorization of these jargons, but a concept is more important. So diverse groups of these molecular products, which are made endogenously through a series of chemical reactions. And we're going to see them in the subsequent slide. Now, the interesting part is that these AGEs are found endogenously, that is inside the body, and can be introduced into the body exogenously through the food that we eat. So similarly, your AGEs are endogenous and exogenous. These are formed in the natural occurrence in the body due to normal metabolism and the aging process. So this means that all of us have some amount of AGEs present in our body. And we also eat cooked food. So when we cook our food in different mediums at different temperatures and in different combinations, AGEs are formed. This became a popular concept a decade before when the ADA conferences started discussing hyperglycemia and the metabolic components. So this is not only for diabetic patients who have hyperglycemia inside the body, but this could be the non-enzymatic glycation which is happening in non-diabetic patients also. So let's see what really happens. We eat food which has amino acids, and this is a non-diabetic person where in the presence of reducing sugars, now it could be sucrose, fructose, and sorbitols as well. So when we have good amount of free amino acid pool and the reducing sugars available in the gut, they start forming reactions, oxidations, and they form these AGEs. If you are eating a food which is high protein with some amount of sugar, something like a milk peda, where you see some browning happening, or your the milk cake, which has a good Maillard reaction happening. So you are having an exogenous source of AGE, which is going into the body and is going to create more endogenous AGEs. Now let's look at what could be the other factors. When you ingest a food which is really high in AGE, we'll discuss that. If you choose wrong cooking methods, if you choose wrong cooking mediums, if you cook at very high temperatures, which of late most of us have seen in the urban population moving on to barbecuing, grilling, baking. And this lockdown, we'd seen so many people picking up baking as a hobby, and most of them were baking cakes and tarts. So that's where a lot of dry heat and high temperature was causing the damage. Then comes the duration, then comes wrong combinations, and then the cooking surfaces. So if we want to understand what is really happening inside a non-diabetic patient, all of us to say so, is a non-enzymatic reaction between the amine, which is coming from the amino acid pool or a protein source, and the reducing sugar, In biochemical terms, we call it the Schiff's base. Now, this is something which does not happen in the next couple of minutes or hours. In the body, it takes days and weeks. We have eaten food and we think that in the next 3 hours, with the gastric emptying, all the absorption has happened. But this is not so. It takes days and weeks together for the food to get assimilated, for the food to get unfolded into the protein chains, misfolded, and form various products. If consequently we are all the time choosing the wrong kind of combinations, the Schiff's base converts to Amadori products, and this is a progression which takes from weeks to months. Now, subsequently, if we are eating a series of these food products which are leading to both these processes, we form something which is called as AGE. You can see here in the third number of the slide, the AGE metabolites which are formed. Now, this is nothing but a rearrangement of the protein chain, and in between them, there is a cross linkage which is formed where the AGE bodies are sitting, and this makes the protein an irreversible protein. This irreversible protein chain, which is now called as AGE, will lead to a lot of chronic inflammation and tissue damage inside the body. This is a biochemical representation of the same thing that we understood. So we have something which is high protein or high fat or high glucose. And this is how the rearrangement can change. And in a span of days to months, the AGEs are formed, and which leads to the pro-inflammatory gene expression. Now, these are few AGEs which you can measure in the body. This can easily be measured in the blood. These are various structures as to how they look like. What happens to the AGEs into the body? Now, once we are eating glucose through a sugar source, or if we are eating a high fruit diet or a lot of fruit juices, we are also introducing fructose in our diet. So there is glucose auto-oxidation, or this fructose itself can form the metabolite of fructose 3-phosphate and enter into the cycle with lipids present into it and can form some of these AGEs. These AGEs further, after the Schiff's reaction, form something called, which you can see at the bottom of the slide, the CML, pyrrolin, and pentosidenes. These are your AGLs, which are formed in a span of weeks to months. These together can then lead to the complete protein denature and the permanent formation of AGE, which is going to cause the inflammation. However, if you have not eaten fructose sources, but you have hyperglycemia, if you're a diabetic, or if consistently you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, which is subsequently causing a lot of glucose production, that also combined with protein can lead to this kind of formation. Now, looking at both the parameters, one is of Maillard reaction, which could be outside the body and inside the body, and the other is glycation. Whatever be the cause of AGE formation, these low molecular weight AGEs will cause a lot of toxic cytokine inflammation and a lot of oxidative stress into the body. This is another very interesting slide, quite crowded, I'm sorry for that. But this is just to tell you how the early phase of wrong eating can produce certain metabolites. And if this continues for a longer period of time, and you also have a comorbid condition, there is a propagation phase, and ultimately there is an end phase, which is lasting from weeks to months together. So this is how the protein chain looks like. If we look at the first circle, you have your protein chains where you have specks of sugar around it in the blood. Now, when these are undergoing the enzymatic activity, these protein chains will realize that there is some glycation adhering to them. So these are early glycation products, which initiates your oxidative damage and inflammatory reactions. And if it is left to continue, if there's no control of the glycation or the exogenous AGEs coming into the body, they actually denature the protein and form the cross linkages, which we can see in the last circle, where the AGEs are nicely sitting between the protein chain and they form the cross-linked structure, and that affects your collagen completely. So when the collagen is totally becoming stiffened, this is where we see the aging. You can beautifully appreciate it in the skin. So if you see a diabetic patient who has long-standing hyperglycemia, you'll start seeing the wrinkling very fast in such patients. This was just one simple example on the cosmetic part of it. But there are much more inside the body with these AGEs formed inside. So each cell gets these collagen stiffening into the body. This is the biochemical pathway. I really don't want to confuse you, but what I wanted to emphasize in this slide is it is not just high sugar, high protein, and high fat. It is also unplanned intake of fructose sources, which is taking a lot of fruit in the diet. This is another example to tell us the biosynthesis of AGEs. So on the extreme left-hand side, we have the stressors, which are the basic ingredient to form the AGEs. So here we have fructose, we have amino acetone threonine, which comes from the amino acid pool. We have the glycolysis, which is going on the glucose, combined with some lipid, which ultimately on oxidation leads to inflammation. These are propagated by the temporary bodies, which lead to the formation of the permanent, denatured, irreversible bodies, which are your end products. So what is the fate in the body? You would find that on ingestion of AGEs, they are assimilated throughout our GI tract. They are absorbed up to 30%. 60 to 80% is consumed in the form of pyrroline and pentosidine. About 2/3 of it is circulated freely into the blood. So if a patient is diabetic with high hyperglycemia already, a higher HbA1c, along with AGEs, they are more susceptible to pick up cardiac issues. Then the urinary excretion, our body tries to excrete out as much as possible. So nearly 1/3 of the consumed AGE in a healthy population who's not a diabetic would be excreted out. But if we continuously have foods which are high in AGE or our metabolic pathways are such that we have uncontrolled diabetes and other comorbid or propagating factors which we saw, this would lead to a higher production and the body will not be able to excrete out completely. The new area of research is the fecal excretion of AGEs. This is still under a lot of scrutiny, and we really do not have much data on how much of it can be excreted through the stools. Now, the other three things which are very, very important are the colorants, the flavorants, and the AGEs which may be present in a preservative which is added to the food. Now, if you're eating a slice of bread just by toasting it, there's some amount of maltodextrin formation which is happening. Now, you apply a bread spread onto it, put a cheese slice with some vegetables or maybe some paneer onto it. You have successfully added a lot of AGEs to your bread slice, which was not so high initially. So the colorants from the various bread spreads, from the different pizza, pasta, or these seasonings that are available, or different kinds of masalas which are available are quite high on them, and they add on to a lot of AGE into the diet. This is just to tell you the endogenous production. So if we look at how glucose, ribose, fructose come down together with the Schiff's base and the Amadori cycle, and they form these bases. So by now, my aim was to successfully tell you how the formation of AGE happens in the body. So this you would see that there are so many which can be measured in the end phase of AGE production. So why are we talking about it now? Now, we are basically talking about it now because we saw a lot of patients who came back after the lockdown. Still, there are some people who have not stepped out from the house for very long hours. And in the name of healthy food, they're eating junk food cooked at home. And this is all the more unfortunate because when it is food cooked at home, the portion size is very, very distorted. So what is really happening is you're buying different kinds of various sauces which are maybe used in Subway kind of sandwiches or in hot dogs or in pizzas. And those are smeared onto different kinds of bases, which could be a pizza base or a burger bun, and you're making such things at home. There's a lot of introduction of high temperature cooking, like you have baking, frying, sauteing, broiling, searing, toasting, grilling, roasting, barbecuing, which has picked up a lot of interest of late. So things which are really making your food phenomenally taste good, smell really nice. You can actually smell the caramelized chicken quite a distance. A good looking food, has loads and loads of these high AGE present in them. Also, when you're exposing your foods, which could have been high in AG or could not have been high in AG, depending on what you pick up, when you expose them to dry heat, which is coming from most of these methods like baking, you are using for roasting, barbecuing, a lot of dry heat at very high temperatures. That's when you are increasing the AGE from 10-fold to 100-folds. So the uncooked ingredient that we had taken has now become very, very high in the AGE. We also need to appreciate that certain food combinations are really bad for us. So eating something which is really high in fat, along with something which is rich in protein, cooked into a high temperature way of cooking, in a medium which was facilitating a lot of AGE production, causes the main damage. Now choose your ingredients wisely. So most of the animal proteins, like coming from your meat, chicken, already have the AGEs ingested by the organism that you are eating. So they are predominantly high in the AGEs. Anything which is processed has undergone a lot of high temperature treatment. So different kinds of cheese, your fried items, your butter. Now, butter is something which people would not really feel is a high AG product, but understand that the formation or making of butter or even your Tetra Pak milk or the milk that you buy undergoes a cycle of pasteurization, which is ultra high temperature for a very short duration. So that also introduces good amount of AGEs into your food. So high fat milk products, butter, these are quite high in AGEs. Similarly, your cream cheese, margarine, mayo, or oils and nuts. The preparation of oil is something we need to understand. So if it is a cold pressed oil, which has not undergone so much of heat treatment, the AGEs are less. And what was the source of the oil? So if it is a plant oil, it comparatively would be lesser compared to a nut oil. Then looking at nuts, predominantly all the nuts are high in AGEs because they undergo dehydration before they come to you on your table. So what is the impact of AGE on our health? And if I have successfully not spoiled your mood till now, I would definitely guarantee that by the end of the 10 next slides, you would definitely be very upset. So let's look at what is the impact of these AGEs on our health. These AGEs look like COVID virus because they manage to reach out each and every organ and do all the possible damage to every organ. So be it the AGE production in the eye, it can successfully cause cataract, retinopathy. It could be diabetic retinopathy or non-diabetic retinopathy as well. So eye-related damages, because your eye blood vessels are very, very tiny. So if there are these so many AGE, small denatured cross-linked proteins sitting there, they really impact the eye health. They directly impact your hormonal cycle. I'll show you a slide on that as well. So it can cause a lot of endocrine related issues like insulin resistance. It can cause a lot of genital cancers, organ failures, diabetes because of the insulin resistance. And in the brain, there's a major impact. So Parkinson's and the Alzheimer's is commonly seen in patients who have very high AGE consumption. It's all flowing in the blood. So it successfully causes a lot of heart damage, hypertension, organ failure like liver failure and your heart failure, a lot of vascular damage. It can cause lupus. It can cause a good amount of erectile dysfunction in men if they consistently use a lot of AG-rich foods because of the premature aging. So there's all related to chronic inflammation, and that is what is the basis of your non-communicable diseases. Interestingly, there's a lot of bone damage which also can happen. So it arrests your bone regeneration or remineralization process, and the bone degradation also starts very fast. Now let's look at what is the mechanism. So when we have good amount of AGs, be it from endogenous or exogenous, it directly impacts your immune cells. It starts interacting with them and increases the oxidative stress, which means that the memory of our T cells and B cells, which are responsible for our immunity, becomes short-lived. And there is a good amount of immune system imbalance. you would experience that the patient has a lot of chronic inflammation, there is tissue injury, and this is an ongoing process, which leads to protein aggregation and irreversible formation of cross-linking protein chains. These all together can lead to a huge havoc into the health, and these are all seen in those orange color oval structures where you can see it almost can cause all kinds of non-communicable diseases. So if we look at allergies, there are people who come to your OPDs and say that, almost 3 months back, I was able to digest milk very well. Now, when I try to take milk, I feel bloated. So there are lots of these allergies which are not basically allergies in nature. These are intolerances which are because of the high amount of AGE formed into an individual. And there are nice research trials which were done on mouse as a model. And it was found that AGE can successfully modify or modulate the allergens into the body, which can cause allergic symptoms. So if we are able to, we find a lot of allergies coming off late, and that can directly be attributed to the higher amount of CRAP food intake. Now, CRAP would stand for calorie rich and processed food. Now, this is what I was talking to you about, the hormones. So you would see that when you have a good exposure of AGE all across your body, it successfully latches itself to all these hormones and adipokines. And you could see that there is some amount of AGE and things attached in these, color balls which are round, the polka dot balls which are there. You can see to each hormone and adipokines how they are attached, and they make them resistant in their activity. So this is one of the main causes why we find that they're successfully bringing about these non-communicable diseases. Now let's look at a specific organ level. So if we have higher amounts of Gs in the body, in the brain, it really makes the tissues stiffened, it alters the reward pathways, and there are addictions like neuroadaptation. So we find the progression of Alzheimer's and the progression of Parkinson's very, very fast if a person is on a high AGE diet, knowingly or unknowingly. If we look at GI tract problems, there is decreased secretion of GLP-1, there is decreased intestinal epithelial integrity. So leaky gut issues or IBS issues are very, very common of late. And people do not attribute it to the processed food or the wrong combinations that they are eating. There's a lot of change in the gut microbiota, and we find it very difficult to come back to the normal gut after so much of increased intestinal inflammation. Liver, which is supposed to be the factory of our body, also undergoes a lot of change and abuse. Similarly, our kidneys. Then comes our white adipose tissues. So a high AGE intake leads to insulin resistance and further weight gain, which a person is not able to attribute because they come back to you and say that I was on a keto diet and I've been eating only barbecued chicken and say fried eggs. So I've not really been eating any carbs, but I don't see any change in my weight. Then you have the immune system. You find people falling sick very often, and that could also be attributed to the high AGE levels. There is a good amount of vascular change because there is good atherosclerosis, aortal stiffness, and endothelial dysfunction. And then comes our pancreas, so which also is badly affected. So what really happens when you eat a food which is high in AGEs and you have your altered glucose metabolism? So this is how it gets into the bone. The bone gets the AGE deposition and the collagen crosslinks happen, and this causes the bone stiffness to increase, and slowly, gradually, the remineralization which was happening is gone for a toss, and you find such people to be having more osteoporotic fractures because the bone health is not that great. People who are exercising and over-exercising but not watching out on their diet experience a high amount of muscle stiffness, loss of elasticity, and they come back to you with loss of muscle mass in spite of exercising so much, and they have a very poor physical performance. They think that after working out 1 hour in the gym, I have no stamina to do anything else. I cannot do anything else. There's huge amount of sarcopenia. And in the red blood cells, you find that there is an increased cell deformity. So people are not able to assimilate the hemoglobin levels so well. So there is a hidden anemia there. There are arterial challenges, there are eye-related challenges which we've discussed, and there are issues with Alzheimer's because there is a AGE deposition which is causing inflammation in the brain blood vessels. On top of it, if a person is exposed to a hypercaloric diet, which can further induce glycemia in a normal energy metabolism also, or a high refined and simple carbohydrate diet, a high fat diet, sedentary lifestyle, foods cooked at high temperatures, and tobacco use. So the entire pathway is really affected to a great extent by the low mitochondrial oxidation capacity. These are just to tell you that there's so much amount of work which has already been done. There are so many publications on huge number of people. There are good meta-analysis which are available. So there's enough evidence to say how, the AGEs has affected the vascular health, the diabetic health, insulin resistance in type 1, in PCOS, in cases of skin health. So you just name it and they have the impact on all the body organs. Now, in case of diabetes, you also experience, along with hyperglycemia, inflammation, oxidative stress, and hormonal imbalance. In case of cardiac health, you can appreciate the arterial deposition, calcified atherosclerosis with the AGE sitting there. In case of your kidney health, you can see that these Bowman capsules are finding it extremely difficult to do their normal activities because all the cytokine production that was there is attached to the AGEs next to them. Neurodegenerative diseases, we understand about the gut and brain correlation in the health. So we would find that these cross-linking AGEs are bringing about a poor activity in the nerve cell. So if you compare both the healthy and the unhealthy nerve cell, you would see that in the healthy nerve cell, you have nice nerve impactance. The axons are very nice and clear. Whereas here in this case, they are shrunken, cross-linked, and damaged at the myelin sheath. In terms of cancer, it really impacts all the more because it changes the transcriptional activation of the cells, and there is a lot of cytokine secretion, which really makes it difficult for the body to have a better response to these inflammatory responses. This is an example to show you how collagen on the skin of a person can get impacted with the high AGE subsequently over a period of a couple of years. Now, what is body's mechanism? Our body tries its level best. You remember the diagram where the body is excreting out good amount in the urine. So on a daily basis, it tries to eliminate, it tries to break it down and eliminate it. But there is a limitation there. There are certain receptors to these AGEs, but you do not find them working so efficiently if there is a constant supply of high AGE food, endogenous or exogenous, into the gut. So we need to identify what are our sources and what really forms AGE. So food we discussed about, we will talk about what are foods which are rich in AGEs, what cooking mediums, temperatures. There are certain foods which are enhancers, certain foods which are inhibitors, and there is a good amount of mechanism which is available to reduce AGEs naturally in the body. So this is your basic example. So when you eat food which is grown on a plant vis-a-vis a food which is manufactured in a plant, you can see the difference. All this while, we felt that a granola bar is a very nice replacement to a breakfast. So if you appreciate, eating fruit would have been much better with a glass of milk than eating a granola bar, which is 2,200 international units of the per day of the AGEs. Now, if you have a burger with some chicken nuggets by the side, it gives you 7,800. And God forbidden, if you would have added a slice of cheese to it, you really make it a high AGE food. We consider tofu to be a very healthy food. And most of us who turn vegan switch over to tofu. But tofu, again, is a processed, high protein, high temperature treated product. So this also has a good amount of tofu, good amount of AGE into it. So we understand that cooking really increases. You take a raw chicken, which is 800 units. When you poach it, it becomes 1,000 units. When you deep fry it, it becomes 8,000 units. Look at a bacon. If you're eating a bacon, it can successfully damage a good amount of your body cells because it has 90,000 AGEs present in it. If you could make the portion half and replace and add some raw vegetables to it, you can bring down the load by 50%. Which cooking methods? Now, we can guess them easily. These are your barbecuing, grilling, roasting, baking, frying, broiling, searing, toasting, and any processed ingredient used while cooking these food items. So it's important that if you are using these cooking methods, you spread them over a period of a week's time so that on a daily basis, you don't end up having most of these cooking methods being used on a regular basis. Looking at the right methods of cooking, now our body can accept on a daily basis something close to 15,000 kilo units per liter per day. Now, you cannot really ingest all of it from the diet because it is forming inside the body also. So, if we keep a diet as low as 50% of our daily cutoff, we can see that around 50% may be formed in the body. And for diabetics, we will have to cut down these further because there's glycemia related AGE formation also in them. So, looking at a plate full of salad, which is slightly tossed and cooked, you get very low quantities of AGE. Vis-a-vis a keto chicken, which a person would eat, which is 250 grams, which will give you 15,000 kilo units of the AGEs per liter. So you are done with the quota for the day. So people who are on keto diets are not realizing what is the real damage. They are eating a high protein, high temperature cooked food with high fat in it. So foods which are naturally high in AGEs are certain foods which we have to space out in a day's diet and try and keep them on a weekly separation. So these are your meat, certain types of cheese. Most of the cheese are basically high. The drier the cheese, the higher is the AGE content. So your Parmesan cheese is really, really high. Eggs, when eaten in the boiled format vis-a-vis the fried, when you use cooking medium of oil, it increases the AGE vis-a-vis cooking using moisture or boiling or steaming the food. Butter, as we had discussed, is very high in AGE. Cream cheese, margarine, oils, nuts, any fried food and any high processed food that may contain all this. So all your sauces, bread spreads and different kinds of things which are available to enhance the taste and flavor of your food is definitely high in your AGEs. How cooking makes an impact. So this will give us an idea on what could be a better cooking method. Let me tell you, olives are something which are high in AGEs, and olive oil, even the extra virgin variety, is very high in AGEs. That's basically because fresh olives are the ones which we eat is the processed olives. So the ones which we eat are definitely high in AGEs. And the extra virgin oil, due to the treatment that is given because the ingredient itself was high, is again high. So you can see if you had a piece of beef, when you eat it raw, it was somewhere close to a few hundreds of AGEs. Then you microwave it. Now microwave is again a dry heat. You stew it, you broil it, you grill it, and you can see the multifactorial change that is happening. And pan fried without olive oil, so a dry roasting kind of a pan frying which is done, which can be a sauteing without oil, can increase it to beyond 8,500. Looking at how cooking and temperature and medium modifies the AGE. Now look at the extreme down portion of the graph where you have French fries. Now French fries are close to 1,500 units of AGE vis-a-vis your burger. Now what really happens is we go outside for a nice McDonald's meal and we buy a burger with French fries and a glass of Coke. So we have additional glycation with a good amount of 1,500 AGE containing French fries and a burger, and God forbidden if the burger has good amount of cheese, a cheese slice added to it, you're done for the week. So what should be our choices? If we have to pick up any of the processed foods in a meal, we have to make sure that we have the other low AGE foods to compensate the total 15,000 units. So good amount of fresh foods. Seafoods are quite good, except for the high fat seafoods. Your whole grains, which are not processed, unpolished ones, breads, low fat milk. Milk in the low fat form has a lower AGE compared to the high fat or full cream or full fat milk. Similarly, cooking temperatures which require short-term cooking and which has water as a cooking medium, say steaming, boiling, poaching, stewing, would be really, really good. Exercise tends to really make a change in the initial duration. So if you have your shifts cycle going on, where in weeks to months you have the formation of these AGEs, exercise can reverse it to some extent. However, in obese patients with insulin resistance, we find it extremely difficult. So try and maintain the body weight, which is definitely our advice to all our patients. Tobacco abuse adds on to the free radical formation and the proliferation of the AGE bodies. Other considering factors which are still being debated and researched are additional amine groups, the carboxyl groups in the food, lipids in the form of lipid peroxides, addition of antioxidants, the kind of packaging material, the non-thermal processing, transition from the metals. People have, quite a few people have moved on to the total cast iron cooking. So that is extremely toxic. If you cook all your food in iron, there's a lot of food and iron interaction, and so much of iron can be toxic. So you really have to choose the right cooking ingredients for the right kinds of metals. Then pH plays a very important role. If we add a little lemon or vinegar to alter the pH of the food, that alters the formation of AGE into the body. Water availability. The simplest example that me and Sandhya were discussing yesterday was eating nuts which are high in AGE after soaking. And when you pre-soak your nuts, you are actually reducing the availability of the phytates. Even if you don't peel them out, the phytate in the nuts which were pre-soaked is much lower, and phytate is one of the precursors to form the AGEs into the body. So pre-soaking food is a very, very good idea. And trying to modulate or control your heating temperatures and time would be something which will considerably help us in looking at the AGEs. So just to give us an example, a scrambled egg which had 75 kilo units when is fried will give you 1,240. 2 ounces of basil which was 60 kilo units on toasting become nearly 100. A whole milk which is 3 kilo units, 59 ml, 1/4 cup, vis-a-vis a tablespoon of cream is 325 kilo units. Poached chicken is 1,000, grilled chicken is 5,200, baked potato is 70 kilo units, whereas French fries, 3 ounces, close to 100 grams, would be 690 kilo units. Similarly, braised beef as such is a high fat sauce, so which had 2,200 on braising. When you broil it, it becomes nearly 3 times to 6,600. Now, food group wise, if we look at the foods which are high naturally in AGEs are avocado, which has per 100 gram 1,500 kilo units. So if you're using avocado, make sure that you don't cook it. You use it as a bread spread and in lesser quantities with other vegetables to negate the effect of AGE. Among the vegetables, it's only olives, which is 1,670 kilo units per 100 grams. Among the nuts, most of them are quite high in the AGE content, except for your pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. Again, roasting will add on to the AGE content. So the regular sunflower seeds, which were 2,500, will become 4,600, nearly double when you roast them for a better shelf life. Looking at the non-vegetarian sources like beef when eaten raw is 700, when microwaved is around 2,600. When ground and pan ground, you're heating and breaking the pieces, so it becomes nearly 4,900. When you broil it, it becomes 7,500. So this is how we can actually choose from the various food groups. Looking at the other processed food items like your bacon is really, really high. A fried bacon would be 90,000 plus in your AGE content. All forms of cheese and butter are quite high in AGEs. All forms of processed foods like your margarine, mayo, these are quite high in their AGE content. Children are very fond of Oreo biscuits. I'm sorry to take the brand name, but this value was easily available. So a 100 grams packet of the biscuit is nearly 1,770 kilo units of AGEs. Now, if you look at the bottommost part, your extra virgin olive oil is 10,000 units, whereas if you use for marination, some amount of vinegar, or they will drastically reduce your AGE formation into the body, or lemon for that matter. If you really want to have a research angle and estimate it into your body, you just need a blood sample. You could do it through various methods like your mass spectrometry. You could use ELISA kits which are available, which could estimate various forms of AGEs into the body. How do we really modify? If we really have to have different cooking methods to have a mix of everything, number one, our principle remains the same of moderation. Number two, try and marinate the food using the items which can reduce AGE formation, cut down the portion size, try and expose it to a lower temperature, keep flipping on. Now, when you go for a barbecue lunch or dinner, you see that there's a barbecue put and the food is getting charred. So whether it's a pineapple or a mushroom or a chicken, the more charring happens, the more is the AGE formation. And try and add a seafood or a fruit and vegetable salad by the side dish to reduce your total AGE intake of the meal. There are certain medicines which have found to have magical effect, and aminoguanides are known and researched to reduce the AGE content in the body, but these are generally on medical prescription. Some of them are a part of your antihypertensive and lipid-lowering medications, also like your statins and ramiprils. They may have some impact in the AGE reduction. Now, let's look at food as a remedy. So we talked about using low temperatures, using water-based mediums, trying to use foods with fruits and vegetable combinations so that you can cut down the portion, add on to your vegetable portions. If you are marinating the food, use acid base so that you could reduce the AGE content. Vitamin D tends to play a very, very important role because it reduces the AGE level in the body. Other things which are important is the cooking medium along with the cooking surface. So if you are using ceramic surfaces are known to be one of the best. We did not find much literature on the stone cooking and the earthenware cooking because that has not been researched, but I'm sure it also, because it holds the low heat for a longer time. Try to eliminate the non-stick cooking utensils. Try and eliminate the processed ingredients in your food. So even if you have to use a paneer tikka, don't use a masala maker. Try and use your regular spices and use them for marinating the food along with lemon, basil, or mint, or curd, which can reduce the effect of AGE formation. Then looking at antioxidants, because they tend to reduce the impact. Can you appreciate the third or the fourth slide where we saw the antioxidant latching up to the free radical and reducing the activity? So that is the magical effect we can bring about. Another important thing is, what are you adding to your diet? Now, as dietitians, we most of the times prescribe a lot of high protein, whey protein isolates or ready to eat supplements just to build up and boost up the calorie and protein intake. So if we know for sure that they are highly processed, so they would definitely have a high AGE content, but we do not have the values yet. We have the values of the milk samples, the infant formulas, and these are on research found to be quite high in their AGE content. So before you put a supplement in your mouth, you have to be very, very careful. What would be the AGE content of the food? Now, this is one of the best slides that I would say, because this is the remedial part. Now, if you see the topmost part, all the AGEs that are formed are altering the signaling in our body, can easily be managed by three basic principles. Apart from a healthy diet, exercise, cutting down on the right calories for the patient, cutting down and giving them the right calories for their body type, autophagy has found to be a very, very impactful method. So this would go back to something which is a principle of intermittent fasting, and it should be done in the range of 16 hours to 18 hours of fasting. Research papers have shown that when autophagy is done, these irreversible formations, cross-linked, unfolded, misfolded proteins get unfolded and provide some amount of amino acid pool, and they really reverse the AGE formation and the AGEs which are already formed. So the damage is much, much lesser. Use of plant proteins, which give you a lot of polyphenols, is also something which has shown a good impact. I'll come to it in the next slides. And immune modulation. So adding a lot of vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin D would really help in cutting down the inflammatory part and giving you a better impact. The other important things is try and maintain your glycation as low as possible. If the patient is diabetic, we have to make sure that the sugar levels are close to normal. There are no free radicals through the smoke. There is the right exposure to the sun, which is 20 minutes to 30 minutes, not overexposed, because that gives you UV rays. Look at getting more oxygen, getting more plant protein, hydrate yourself with a lot of fluids. Fluids also removes the toxins, and it also helps in reducing the sugar. If you take a lot of fluid and the person has good glycation, that has shown to reduce the glycation effect. Practice moderate regular exercises. Now, the key word here is regular and not exercise. People do exercise once a week or go to the gym just 1 hour every morning and think that's enough. It has to be throughout the day being active, eating more vegetables. So this is to summarize what we have heard. We have different endogenous AGEs, which could be a combination of amines and aldehydes cooked at high temperatures, or glucose oxidation with lipid peroxidation, or high blood sugars with high protein, high fat in the body, or sorbitate cycle and fructose, which gets into Schiff's base and the amidori and forms all these AGEs. You have the exogenous food sources, which are these. You have favorable cooking methods, which are steaming, boiling, short duration, low temperature cooking, sauteing, lid covered cooking. I'm sorry for the spelling mistake. Lid covered cooking will introduce moisture and give the effect of this steam. Pre-soaked cooking, like you have the Ayurvedic concept of soaking the dals for at least 2 to 3 hours, which is a good concept, and don't discard the water. Cook it with as minimal temperature as possible. Unfavorable methods we've discussed a lot. Looking at the enhancers for health, one most important parameter is autophagy, because it revives the damaged proteins, phenolics coming from the plant sources, immune modulating, and regular exercise. The inhibitors in the diet, which inhibit the AGE formation, or your turmeric, which gives you the curcumin, grapeseed extract resveratrol, which has found to reduce the formation of AGE. Most of the cruciferous vegetables, because they have something called sulforaphane, which has a very good effect in negating the effect of AGE. We recently had a presentation from one of the ICMR professors through a college, and he showed the impact of amla and lemon in reducing the AGE formation in the body. Similarly, mint and basil has a protective effect. Tea has a good effect when taken in limited quantities. Herbs like caraway, cinnamon, condiments, and looking at ginger and garlic also tends to reduce the AGE formation. Medical management we've talked about. So what is most important is we have a rational approach towards the changes that are happening around us. Like we recently had this air fryer introduced, and we did not really realize, we thought it was a low fat medium of preparing healthy food, but there's so much of acrylamides which are formed, there's so much of dry heat, so it is an invitation to AGE. Please do not get impressed with any new technology. Try reading up rather than just getting into this digital mode of being robotics. So our my plate of the day holds really, really good for all of us. And that is my message to all of you, that, eat healthy food, eat fresh, and look at all the parameters that we've discussed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyanka, for that excellent presentation, the much awaited topic. There are a lot of questions. So can I take the questions now, Priyanka, or do you just need a couple of minutes?
No, please.
Okay. The first question is, can you explain the role of AGEs in autism?
Okay. See, autism is still a debatable disease, and the problems related to autism is you have a challenge in the sorbitol absorption. So you should not be giving them a lot of easy energy in the form of sugars and glucose and candies, etc. They have a problem of leaky gut. So leaky gut can be addressed if there are low AGEs in the body and you focus on the gut integrity. Not that I've come across a paper directly on AGE and autism, but I'm quite confident if we reduce the inflammation in them, we can actually handle the better absorption and arrest the resistance to the hormones.
The next question is there a significant difference or reduction in AGE with consumption of multivitamin or vitamin C supplement?
Not really directly that we can measure that if you've taken a 500 grams tablet of vitamin C in the body. It basically depends on your food combinations that you've taken, the kind of cooking methods, mediums, a lot of things, and overall exposure of your AGE in the body. But it should subsequently definitely, because the formation of AGE would come down.
Okay. Europeans use olive oil extensively. What part of their diet could be protective against AGEs, considering their high olive oil and meat intake?
Okay, their most important thing is portion sizes. So if you see their portion size of chicken or fish would be maybe the third or the fourth course of their meal. They would start with a soup. Their cooking temperatures for all the meals may not be very, very high. Maybe one of the course out of the 6, 7 course that they have may be high. And they follow it up with a bitter coffee shot. So coffee and caffeine has shown a reduction in the AGE. And they do not cook at very high temperatures for a very long duration. They do not use a lot of masalas like we do, the ready to eat masalas, not the herbs and spices that we're talking about. So that, and the portion size, that's probably a good factor in their diet. I wouldn't say it's a protective part because Europeans are no less in their prevalence of diabetes, obesity, and heart problems. It's only the Japanese who are healthier, and some parts of the South Asian countries, apart from India. India is not really one of the best in terms of the diabetes prevalence. You could attribute it to the if you see their diet, they would have a nice chunky soupy meal as the main meal of their day. Even if they are using tofu, they would not again cook a lot of tofu at high temperatures. So it is low temperature cooking with a lot of vegetables added to it.
Okay.
And fish, seafood is very low in AGE.
Okay. The next question is, are there any other physical symptoms apart from aging that can be noticed with excessive AGEs?
See, these are all the symptoms that you would find with NCD prevalence. So you would have early inflammation, you would start finding derangement of your biochemical parameters, increasing of your waistline, insulin resistance. So typically the signs and symptoms that you see of, until and unless you check it in the blood, you wouldn't really know. And all of us would have some amount of AGE, just like we have atherosclerosis, but only when you get a angiogram done, you really know how much of deposition you have. So look at all these parameters when you go for a health check, see how your HbA1c on a year-on-year basis is increasing. So there's some amount of glycation which is happening regularly. And somewhere your hormonal profile is getting changed. Look at the parameters of your lipid profile, which will tell you that somewhere your HDLs are going down, but your LDLs are consistently going up, or your triglycerides are going up. Blood pressure is a very good parameter. Check your weight. If you're physically active, eating healthy, you are actually doing good. Follow some amount of autophagy in the form of fasting. That would ensure that you are not really eating a lot of high AG or forming them in the body.
One second. There is another question that asks, does taking external source of probiotics cut AGE?
It should to some extent, because as Dr. Anura was talking about how the good, a good amount of probiotics increases your intestinal permeability, and it can arrest a lot of other things. So it would help. But what strain you use, lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, are the ones which have shown to be better in such cases.
Okay. There's a question on keto diet. If keto diet is high AGE, how would you explain the effect for therapeutic purposes like epilepsy?
I'm not an expert at epilepsy, so I'm sorry about that. But see, you are not making the direct sugar available to the gut, so seizure episodes are getting arrested. But it's also a combination of steroids, which is playing in the treatment of the epileptic patients. So that is arresting the inflammation, and then you're not having any ready energy. So it's reducing the incidence of seizures. But the keto diet, which is being used for weight loss, if you're really not focusing on your cooking method, I'm not saying all preparations of keto diets are bad. But if you are using, say, a paneer tikka, which is marinated with good amount of, say, cheese cream and things like that, and then you are, barbecuing it or baking it or grilling it, that's when it becomes high in AG. But the similar product can be made in a healthier way. So, not going by the science of keto diet, but the kind of cooking methods, because most of our patients who are on keto diet come back and say, I had a grilled chicken or I bought a salad from, one of these deliverable outlets. So, you really don't know what was the cooking method at what temperature, and foods are charred and they think that it is cooked, or an air fried chicken. So, those are high in AG, and those are predominantly what most of the keto people are eating.
Okay. There's this question on water ionizer. What's your opinion on water ionizer, which claims to change pH?
I would not be the expert to tell you that, but yes, it is just the minerals which were lost in the process of purification were added. It is not anyway comparable to your recommended dietary allowances. pH activity in water, I would not be able to. I'm sorry, I don't have much idea on that.
Any comments on steaming or fermentation of foods and AGE?
Fermentation would definitely benefit. Steaming is one of the best methods that we can use because we are using low temperatures and moisture to cook. And when I was preparing these slides, I came across a lot of foods which had very low AGE. Like momos is a very, very healthy option. So if we look at momos compared to a deep fried momo, steamed momo, so the AG content was much less. Likewise, if you're eating a rasgulla compared to a gulab jamun, not in terms of calories, but in terms of the AGs. So there was a drastic difference in them.
This is what comes to my mind. This is a question from me, Priyanka. So, can we use little water and high heat for cooking? Like, we do it in small pressure cookers. Can we do something like that? And the
pressure cooker, see, high pressure cooker is also reaching a high temperature, but that's for a short duration. Similarly, that will definitely have some AGE production, because if you look at pasteurized milk, pasteurized whole full cream milk is much higher in the AG contents compared to a raw milk. So if you have to pressure cook a food item just to give it a water medium, ensure that you don't use a lot of fat.
Yeah, okay. And I had this same question. Somebody has asked it here. Is homemade butter also high in AGE when compared to processed butter?
I tried looking up that. This question came up previously when we did another session with Rajasthan chapter. Our method of clarified butter preparation is condensing the cream, fermenting it, and then extracting it. So there is hardly any heat exposure because we remove the white butter. So that white butter ideally should not be very high in AGE, but compared to the cream that was formed, it would be higher because you're removing the moisture from them. If you then subsequently heat this white butter to make ghee out of it, that will be high in AGE because dehydrated food is then exposed to high temperature.
Okay. On similar lines, is paneer or cottage cheese high in AGE?
It would be because pasteurized milk is high in AGE, and then you are removing all the moisture, but you're not using heat. But then when you're cooking the paneer at high temperatures, you are getting some amount of AGE. See, our take home message is not to tell you that stop eating paneer, stop eating tofu, stop eating this. Sometimes, if you're using frying, try and add on more of raw fruits and vegetables as side dishes to the same meal. Try and balance it out so that you do not every day reach out your threshold of 15,000 units of the AGEs.
Okay. There are a couple of more questions. Is fulka that is cooked directly over the flame, high in AGE?
It wouldn't be very high in AGE because there's only carbohydrate. There's hardly any protein present in them. So you are just simplifying the carbohydrate form. It's same like toasting a bread slice, but the bread slice comes after baking to you, vis-a-vis a roti, which the atta was kneaded without using any heat. So it is just, puffing of the roti. So it wouldn't be really high in AGE. As your basic ingredient was not very high in AGE.
Okay, okay. Priyanka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. There's this one more question. If AG is measured as food per se, are there values of AG of the same food after acidic or alkali process digestion?
We have the AGE values of the food items in terms of the raw food in the food group tables. We also have the AGE values of the cooked food by different cooking methods. These are all Western data. We don't have much of Indian data. But after digestion in acidic or alkaline pH, not that I have come across. So these would be your human trials where you've taken a sample pre and post. Say, suppose I've eaten a pizza slice and after 3 to 4 hours or maybe a week later, you're trying to measure the AG. That is something I'm not too sure that I have come across.
Okay. There is a comment that says, so some amount of coffee and tea is good to reduce AGs in the body.
Definitely. See, tea coffee is not an abuse. It's when our portions get distorted. That's when it starts, affecting us badly.
Okay. That's it. Are there any more questions? Would anybody like to post their questions either in the comment section or in the YouTube thing? Anisha and Namrata, are there any more questions? I think that's it. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for that wonderful presentation, much awaited one. I'm sure all the questions that was lingering in everybody's mind about AGEs would have got cleared. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. On behalf of Indian Dietetic Association Bangalore chapter and the entire LEC team, we thank you for coming today and making this wonderful presentation. Over to you, Sandhya.
I'd like to thank my entire team here at Apollo because we always, every day at lunch, had these discussions, and a lot of knowledge sharing has come from all of them, Sandhya, Suresh, and all my team members.
Thank you so much for that, Priyanka. It was an excellent presentation. I can't thank you enough for this presentation, Priyanka. I just love the discussions that we had while we were, having the AG content in it and things. So I take this opportunity to thank you for agreeing to be the speaker and giving this excellent presentation. I can see a lot of, feedback coming in on the chat box, and I'm getting a lot of messages on my personal window thanking me for, hosting this event. So thank you once again, Priyanka. And I thank, and we have, received a lot of insight about what are AGs, how these AGs can push us towards ill health, how to reduce the formation of AGs, and what are the foods that can be included to reduce the impact of AGs. If at all we can implement all this knowledge that we have learned today in our daily life, we will be, really happy. And it is the purpose is served of having this session, and especially to the dietitians fraternity. And I also thank Ms. Sangeeta for moderating the session and handling the questions very tactfully. I thank Namrata for the technical support, and I thank the whole team of Bangalore chapter for giving us the continued support in conducting these virtual sessions. And last but not the least, I thank all the participants for participating. Thank you all.
And at this note, I'm very, very grateful to IDA Bangalore chapter for this platform. One of the very senior dietitians has sent me a message, which is a great food for thought for all of us. What about nutraceutical supplements? So please ask all the company people to get back to you with the AGA levels, because in the hospital setup, we use it extensively. So let's try and read up on this and get back on some information from the nutraceutical AGE content. Thank you.
Sure, Priyanka. Thank you so much.
Priyanka.